Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. So, hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today? Please remember to drink your water. I have some right here. Make sure you drink your water. You have to stay hydrated in this heat, okay? So, I came right back. I'm giving you two back-to-back videos because I want to get this video in before the jury gets the case on Monday, tomorrow. So I ran across this article when I was doing some research into Sean Combs, and it really gets into more of an insider view of what was happening back, we're looking at now 30 years ago, with Sean Combs in Bad Boy Records. These are people that knew him, that worked alongside him, and they gave interviews to the BBC. So I just want to thank the BBC for providing this. This is really some, information that we would have no idea about. But they're talking about the ongoings, and I want you to know about it. So I'm bringing you the article. So the article is by BBC.com. It's dated February 5th, 2025, and it's titled Studio Sex and Hitman Threats. Insiders speak out about Diddy's 90s music empire. Okay. The article is by Rihanna Croxford and Larissa Kennelly. These are BBC News investigators. Okay. Let's get started. I'm going to bring up a picture of Mr. Combs. So let's do that. Start with that. Okay. And get started. I have so much money now that I could hire someone to kill you and nobody would know. No one would miss you. No one would know anything. Former music executive Daniel Evans says he can still remember the threat from his old boss, Sean Diddy Combs, then known as Puff Daddy to a colleague. It was 1997, he says, in the New York office of Combs's Grammy Award-winning music label, Bad Boy Records. In fact, let me see if I can pull up the label. Because they had there's an interesting story behind the imagery of the label. I can't find the imagery. Let me see. I can't find it. Wait. Or maybe I shouldn't show it. Maybe I just shouldn't show it. I'll just leave it be. So I want to show you a picture of Mr. Daniel Evans. This picture was provided in the article, so we'll keep it on Mr. Daniel Evans just briefly, okay? Just so you have that picture up. So again, we're going back to 1997 in New York. We have Bad Boy Records. We have what Sean Combs was called then Puff Daddy. Okay, and his empire is forming, it's growing. And Mr. Evans, he was a former music executive for Mr. Combs, okay? It was like, this is what money does to you, he says. Combs was often prickly, But Evans says power was transforming him. Just days before, the hip hop mogul had received his biggest reward to date, 6 million, to mark the label's success, which boasted platinum selling artists like the Notorious Big. You guys remember Notorious Big? Christopher Wallace? Trying to see if I can pull up a picture of Mr. Wallace. Right. Okay. Trying to see if I can get a nice picture of him. Oh, I can't use their image. I don't want to use their image. I don't want to get into any trouble for that. Okay. That was the Notorious Big. They called him Biggie, Biggie Smalls. His name was Christopher Wallace. That year, Combs' music career reached its peak, with his empire soon expanding into fashion, alcohol, and even his own TV network. So he was on TV, he had his clothing line, and then he got into the spirits business, okay? Nearly 3 decades on, his legacy is in ruins as he sits in jail awaiting trial on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, alongside battling dozens of lawsuits accusing him of drugging and assault at lavish parties, high end hotels, and in his label's recording studio. He denies all the allegations. Now, the BBC has spoken to more than 20 people who worked with Combs at Bad Boy Records, including former executives, assistants, and producers, who described for the first time troubling incidents they say they witnessed during its 1990s rise. Some executives say they had concerns after seeing Combs having sex with women in the studio, including one incident where the employee says the young woman did not seem to react when he walked in. Another staff member complained Combs asked her to bring him condoms. The BBC also heard that corporate funds were used to fly in women from across the U.S. for sex at the request of artists and other employees. I'm going to add allegedly, okay? I don't want no problem, so I'm going to add allegedly, okay? Let's pull up another picture. Okay. Let's get another picture of Mr. Combs up. We continue. There was a course of conduct that became more egregious over time, and that conduct does go back to the 90s, says Tony Busby, a U.S. lawyer representing dozens of alleged victims, including one who says Combs threatened to kill her in similar terms to the incident Evans says he witnessed. His client alleges Combs arred her on a bathroom floor at a promotional party held for the Notorious Big, the label's biggest star, in 1995. She says in her lawsuit that afterwards Combs told her not to tell anyone or you will disappear. In a statement, Combs's legal team accused Busby of being more interested in media attention than the truth, and said the hip hop star never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone. The 55-year-old's lawyers say they had not been provided with sufficient details about the BBC's claim to present the facts that would counter these fabricated accusations. As we've said before, Mr. Combs cannot dignify every public publicity stunt or facially absurd claim with a response. He has full confidence in the judicial process where the truth will prevail. These accusations are pure fiction, they said. A brash go getter, Sean Combs became an overnight millionaire when he launched Bad Boy Records in 1993 with a roster of top artists. It was Combs' first venture, having already built a name for himself as a talent director at another music label, Uptown Records, aged 19. He said that he wanted to be one of the biggest artists in the world, and it didn't matter if I believed him or not, remembers Jimmy Maines, a former Uptown colleague. Maines remembered Combs having a short fuse in the office, sometimes banging his hands up against the desk like a bratty kid and yelling if he did not get his way. So let's get a different picture as we're going on and on. This is a picture. That's a different picture, right? Okay. Combs was eventually fired from Uptown at the age of 23, started Bad Boy Records. And at the age of 23, started Bad Boy Records. Excuse me. He's the hardest working man that I've ever met and always wanted people to match his energy, says Daniel Evans, a senior executive who managed Bad Boy's recording budgets and artist contracts between 1994 and 1997. Combs described himself as the Great Gatsby and swiftly became known for hosting coveted celebrity bashes at New York nightclubs, on the beaches of Cancun, Mexico, and later infamous white parties named after the all white dress code in the Hamptons. Even President Donald Trump attended events in the 90s, says Evans, who once saw him sit on a golden throne at Combs' 30th birthday and exclaim, I'm the real king of New York. I think I think I can find a picture President Trump and Sean Combs. Okay, so we'll just leave it there. Okay. We were all really young. I was 24 years old, reflects Evans, who was one of the label's original employees. People wanted to party, have fun, hook up, and build good memories. But looking back, Evans says he is troubled by some of the things he witnessed about his boss's behavior and the company culture. In about 1995, he says he walked in on Combs having sex with a young woman at Daddy's house, Bad Boys New York recording studio near Times Square. So we might be able to get a picture of Daddy's house. Let's see. Trying to see if I can find that recording studio picture. Um, I can't right now, but that's okay. We'll go with this picture because this was a picture in the article. I was getting ready to go home for the night and looking for my jacket, opened the door, and he's having sex with this girl, said Evans, who thought the studio was empty as it was silent. Combs swore and shouted at him to leave. I thought I was getting fired, he said. Evans remembers the young woman had been brought to the studio, presumably for a tour by a party promoter who was a friend of Combs. His boss seemed sober while she was quiet and did not really talk, he says, wondering if she was high on drugs or just shy. He says it did not seem unusual at the time, but recalling how the woman did not react when he entered the room, he says, knowing what I know now, there's a lot of speculation about what state she was in. Usually, both parties are very responsive during the act. Felicia Newsome, the manager of Daddy's House recording studio between 1994 and 2000, says inappropriate conduct in the music industry as a whole was rife at the time. It was abnormal if somebody reported it, but it wasn't abnormal for it to be happening, she says. Newsom says an employee once called her to the studio in the middle of the night because Combs was in his underwear about to have sex with a model and another woman. He was demanding the staff member fetch him condoms, she recalls. I said to Puffy, don't ever ask anyone here to go and get condoms, says Newsom, who arrived while they were getting dressed again. He replied, I didn't need anything like that, Ma, and never did it again. Newsom, then in her 30s, says she found Combs reasonable and that he changed his behavior when she challenged him. On one occasion, when the studio first opened in 1995, she says Combs was unhappy about the look of the countertops and called her a bitch in front of staff. Excuse my language. She said she demanded a public apology and temporarily shut the studio, asking him, if I'm bringing women into this space, which is open 24 hours, how do you want to treat people? Combs responded that he wanted it to be an inclusive and safe environment, she says. But while Newsom ran the studio with an iron fist, she says other staff were less comfortable calling Combs out. Bad Boy Records was a crazy house with a lot of young people who wanted to touch the king's robes, she says. Former staff say the label was run by 20 something executives and a large number of interns, some of who were of school age. There were often sexual relationships between employees and the interns, they say. Evans remembers an uncomfortable moment with a 14-year-old in his own team who he said propositioned him. She says to me, you work really hard. If you ever want to like get loose, you and I should kick it, but not tonight. I have a curfew. Evans says he sent her home and called the next day telling her not to return to work. He did not report her, but 2 weeks later, she was back working in the mail room. Artists and other employees at Combs record label would sometimes also request for women to be flown in to have sex at the studio, the former executive says. Wow, that's another picture of Mr. Combs when he was younger. It was probably, excuse me, if they had a sexual specialty in something, they would be flown in, says Evans, who told the BBC he knew because he controlled the budgets. Money for the flights would be set aside and logged under travel, he adds. It was probably like thousands of dollars, said Evans. I don't think it happened all that often, but it was definitely a recording expense. Evans says Combs' own requests were managed by his personal assistants. One told the BBC that Combs would often ask them to fly in women he was messing around with and put them up in hotels, though the assistants said they were not sex workers. In the 2000s, the Daddy House recording studio further changed, two former staff say, into a culture of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Combs would regularly bring random women there to party, turning up with an entourage of dozens of people in three white Jeeps with white rims and white leather seats, they say. Other artists would demand suitcases of Ciroc vodka, and one even brought a monkey to a session, according to a former executive. The studio is one of the locations where women have since accused Combs of drugging and raping them. Model Crystal McKinney alleges the mogul plied her with alcohol and marijuana before sexually assaulting her there in 2003. That same year, a woman alleges that Combs and two associates gang-ard her at the studio when she was 17. Combs' lawyers say he looks forward to proving his innocence, adding that McKinney's claims are without merit. Many ex staff say they still find it hard to reconcile the allegations with the man they knew. These accusations are a surprise to me, as I am sure it is to many of our circle, says Jeffrey Walker, a close friend of Combs who was part of Bad Boys' original production team. I've been to white parties and, of course, studio sessions, and none of what is accused of went down in my sight. Evans was also skeptical about some of the claims until he saw the footage of Cassandra Ventura, Combs' ex-partner of 10 years and a former bad boy artist, being brutally beaten by the rapper in a hotel in Los Angeles in 2016. Ventura was the first person to sue Combs back in November of 2023, alleging that he had trapped her in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking during their relationship. Combs settled the lawsuit the next day for an undisclosed amount. It's not the first time I've seen that temper, recalls Evans, thinking back to the death threat he says he witnessed back in 1997. It's hard to see. The guy in the video with Cassie is almost identical to the guy who threatened the employee. So you wonder, has anything changed? Over the years, Sean Combs has repeatedly reinvented himself from Puff Daddy to P. Diddy, and in recent years, Love. If I'm acting crazy like, that's Diddy. If I'm dancing real smooth with a girl, that's Puff Daddy. And if I'm looking like I'm nervous or scared or shy, that's Sean, he said in an interview in 2015. With more details likely to emerge when he goes on trial in May, many of those who were close to the rapper are questioning whether they knew the real Sean Combs at all. One could think that he's just a disgusting human being, but that's not my memory of Puff, says Jimmy Maines, who grew up with Combs in Mount Vernon, New York. But after a pause, he adds, or maybe money just gives people the freedom to be exactly who they really are. And he was that guy all along. So I found the article to be interesting. I thought it would be nice to share it with you. If you have any interest in it or thoughts on it, please leave me a comment. Thank you for spending this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. I want you to please stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, and check back next week. We may have a verdict in this case against Sean Combs. Bye, everybody. Bye.